Hello and welcome to my home. Today I'm going to talk to you specifically about tomato plants and starting them indoors. So I'm going to start some tomato seeds indoors, and I'm also going to show you the progress of tomato seeds that I planted back in February and their progress just by sitting in my sunny window. But before we get to that, I want to let you know that I also have other types of videos on my channel, such as tasty, easy to do recipes. I have product reviews. I have a few meditation videos and plenty of container gardening tips to help you grow fresh vegetables in containers and pots on your patio, deck, porch. It's so easy, and I'd like you to come along with me on that journey. Well, let's get to those tomato seeds. Now in this yellow pot I have Better Boy brand of tomatoes. Now my Better Boys here I started back towards the February the 4th, I think it was, and that's the two bigger plants. And I subsequently planted some more, these little baby ones down here, about a week ago. And this one I planted 3 weeks ago, and this one 2 weeks ago. So why am I planting them in those intervals? Because I want to keep a continuous flow of tomatoes throughout the season. Now these are the indeterminate type of tomatoes, the Better Boys. And indeterminate means that it does not have a set height, and it grows throughout the growing season up until the first frost. So it's constantly setting fruit all through the growing season, and I like that because I like to have those type of slicing tomatoes to have on sandwiches and just to eat alongside my meal. So these have been growing for a little over a month now. So these two right here, that is. So they're pretty big. They got a second, getting ready to do a third set of leaves on them. They're looking pretty healthy. Plus, you never know what's going to happen to your plants. So if some of my older plants to get disease and die, I still have some of my younger plants coming up behind it. That's two reasons why I plant that way. The other type of tomato is a determinate. These tend to be your smaller plants, and with these, they tend to set all their fruit flowers, and all their fruit will come about and mature at the same time. So if you're someone that likes to make a tomato sauce, or you do a big time type canning of tomatoes, determinates may be the way to go for you. But I like indeterminate tomatoes, so that's what I'm growing. Some examples of determinate, the ones that produce fruit all at once, are your Early Girl, your Italian Roma, your Milano plum tomatoes, which are also very good for making sauces. Some types of indeterminate are the Better Boys that I just discussed, Cherokee Purple, your beefsteak tomatoes. There's something called Moneymaker, a whole type. There's so many types of tomatoes, so check those out. And when you go to your seed store online, and check out my seed video as well about that, or when you go into your garden center. So these are started. Now I'm going to show you how I plant these, the seeds that is, to get them started. So we'll move to that next. One way of starting your seeds is to just use a simple egg carton. Yeah, I just took off the top of the egg carton, and I'm using the part that has the sections where the eggs sit. That is where I put the plants. Right here, these are a couple of my Cherokee tomato plants that I started. And over here are my pepper plants, just regular green bell pepper plants that I started. So they tend to start well in here. But I'm going to start my tomatoes in a bigger pot like this one right here. Now, since we're getting later in the season, I'm just going to go ahead and use a small pot like this. I'm going to use this pot, and this pot is one of the pots I used last growing season. It still has some of the potting mix in there, which is fine, and the potting mix is still good. And I'm going to add some seed starter mix on top of it. And there's all types of seed starter mixes. This is one made by Hoffman. I'm not affiliated with them, but it's just the brand that I use. Helps get your sprouts and grow. So I find that very helpful. It's very fine. very, very fine, and it helps the seeds to sprout and grow. So I'm just sprinkling that right on top. And it's okay to use that on top of the previous soil because I'm going to end up transplanting these out of here into their permanent home when the time comes in another pot outside. But I just want to get them off to a good start with a little seed starter mix on top of it. Now I like to wet my soil first, and I do that because sometimes if you just put the seeds right on top without wetting it and you put the soil on top and you water it, it can move the seeds around and you end up having a bunch of seeds on top of each other, or sometimes the seeds may sink down further into the ground. Just give it a gentle pat because you don't want it to be too loose. It's okay if you make a mess, you can clean it up. I love fresh tomatoes. I had my first tomato as a young girl. We used to go visit my grandparents and they grew all types of vegetables, and there's nothing like the fresh taste of tomatoes. My parents grew tomatoes and green beans, and it's just something that I've always been used to, and so I'm carrying on that tradition. Now it's nice and wet. Let me get the seeds ready. Now I had some Beefmaster tomato seeds left over from last year, and yes, you can use your seeds year to year. You just need to store them properly in a cool, dry place. And I also have a video that talks about storing your seeds, so check that out. I'll put a link to that as well. Here's how the seeds look. Just like tomato seeds, you know, when you eat a tomato, you see those seeds in there. Now we don't plant these very deep, about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to make a few little lines. And then you're just going to drop them in. And if two drop in together, that's fine. Plant germination, it's just based on the law of, I'm going to say, of averages. You will get a good germination with a good seed packet, but sometimes you don't. I need a few more seeds. But I generally find that the seeds that you buy are going to give you some good rate of germination. And that's why I like to plant seeds now as opposed to buying plants. I used to buy tomato plants, but once you get used to planting your own, you'd be like, oh, this is super simple. Oh, I could do this, and you can do it. So I'm just covering up, lightly pat it down, and then we're going to spritz it some more with some water. Now I like to do the spray bottle method until the sprouts come up because I don't want to disturb those seeds again. I want them to stay nice and wrapped up and settled in the soil where I placed them. And I'm going to label this, and I'm also going to put some plastic wrap over top of it. And why am I doing that? To kind of make a little mini greenhouse. So as the sun comes in, it's going to warm the soil and make them germinate quicker and keep the moisture intact as well so they don't dry out as fast. So I'm going to grab some plastic wrap. You know how this plastic wrap is. It gets stuck on itself. So I have to kind of take that apart a little bit. And I'm just going to put it just gently over it like a little blanket. Super, super simple. That's all there is to it. I'll put the label in it to let me know that these are the tomato plants that I planted in the variety. I plan on having a couple of varieties of tomatoes this year along with some other plants. I do have a video on where I'm hardening off my collard greens, my turnips, and my spinach. And I will be planting those outside, and eventually my tomato plants will be planted outside. I'll show you all that. Plus, I'll be doing videos on growing seeds from the very beginning outside when the weather warms up. So the saran wrap is on there, or plastic wrap. That'll make a nice little mini greenhouse effect. They're snug as a bug in a rug. And they should be sprouting in about 7-10 days per the package. And that's all there is to it. If you found this helpful, hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel so you can be alerted when I do my new videos. Well, that's it for now. Bye-bye.